I'd like to call to order the February 7th meeting of the Clearwater City Council. Let me ask that if you have any cell phone or other device that goes off, to please silence it. Our invocation this evening will be led by the Reverend Donna Overcresser from the Central Christian Church, and our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Mr. Albritton. Pastor?
I don't think they heard.
Let us join together in prayer. Creator and sustainer, in this time and place, give us the strength to do the work of not just being a city, but of building a community. We may come from different backgrounds and places. We may speak different languages. We may have differing religious beliefs and even be on opposite sides politically. But help us see the benefit of joining hands and walking together into a brighter future for all of us. Help us to understand that we are given each other not just to tolerate one another, but to celebrate the beauty that comes from our unity and our willingness to work together. For we are called to unity and not uniformity. Tonight, Lord, be with those who have been designated as leaders. Give them wisdom in making decisions. Let them lead in working for justice. Let them govern with fairness and compassion. And let us all be people who live together in peace. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for joining us this evening. As I had said earlier, in case you didn't hear, if you have a cell phone or other device that goes off, to please silence it. Also, I'm going to ask that any comments that are be made, that there be no applause or booing, shall we say. This is a public meeting. This is not a sporting event, so we would appreciate that you give the attention and the respect that you would expect to receive to those who are speaking, even though you may disagree with them. With that, I will first introduce our dais here. I'll start on my extreme left, our city clerk, Rosemary Call, our city attorney, Pam Aiken.
Good evening.
Councilmember David Albritton.
Good evening.
Councilmember Jay Pogler.
Good evening.
To my extreme right, our assistant city manager, Jill Silverboard, our city manager, Bill Horn.
Good evening.
Councilmember Hoyt Hamilton.
Good evening.
And Councilmember Bob Cundiff.
Hello, folks.
Our first order of business this evening is to have a presentation on one of the finest sporting events in the Tampa Bay area, the longest running bowl that has had the same sponsor, and that is the Outback Bowl. I'd like to ask Chuck Griggs and Mike Schultz to please come forward.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Chuck Riggs, and to my left is Mike Schultz. And as you know, we had a fantastic beach day. You guys did a great job. You brought out the sun. And that's always good, especially when you're dealing with Iowa and you're dealing with Mississippi State. And they were checking the temperature, and they were telling us how cold it was back home, even in Mississippi State. But I will say this year, these coaches and these fans were the most friendliest we've had. Sometimes when you get a coach that doesn't like the way practice is going, and all of you have played some sport and you know the coach is yelling at you, none of them were doing that. They just had a ball. In fact, Mike and I were talking. Iowa wanted to come out at 10:30 or 11:30 in the morning. We said, you can, there's not going to be anybody there yet because we're going to be going. But anyway, we thank you for the support. Let me tell you some things that happened this year that made this whole event successful. It's the most watched annual sporting event in the region, and one of the most watched college bowl games showcasing our area both nationally and internationally. We brought 30,000 out-of-market visitors. We had people coming up to on the stage and saying, I'm from so-and-so. This is fabulous. How can we get back? I said, keep winning ball games. That's how you get back to the Outback. We attracted media from more than 100 outlets across the country to cover the game and bowl events. When you're up there on the stage and the camera's pushing you out of the way so they can see the football players, and there's a camera on the left and a camera on the right, and you just kind of shrink and go back and sink into the band. But it was just a great time. Generated millions of dollars for our region. In addition to paying millions of dollars to the universities each year, the bowl added a charitable initiative. Now, this is something we started about 3 years ago. And this year, I think Mike's going to go through the detail, but there are 2 charities that I was involved in that I'm not going to say the amount they're getting because they don't get them until next week. And if they're watching, I don't want to spoil it. But ARC, which you all know well, formerly U Park, and you all are heavily involved, they'll be getting a gift from the Outback Bowl, and specifically a check. And we present that check with their clientele. And that clientele just goes nuts when we bring over the big check, and it's really a lot of fun. And the new group that I'm involved in is Dysautonomia Project. It is a blood disorder, nerve disorder, combination blood disorder, and they'll be getting a check as well. So none of this would be possible about all the things that you do, and we'll continue to donate more to charity. And I think we're over $500,000 this year we're giving away, and you'll go through all that detail. Yep. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mike. And again, I want to personally say thank you very much, because we couldn't do it without you guys.
Thank you, Chuck. As Chuck mentioned, and we've been here many times before, but we think it's very, very important to come face to face with this group representing the city here to thank you all for your partnership and continued support of the Outback Bowl. The bowl game is celebrated its 33rd year this year, which was as Chuck mentioned, we have been able, because of partnerships like this, not only put on a fantastic event on Clearwater Beach during December 30th to bring thousands of visitors to the beaches and to really showcase the beaches, both to the fans that are here in town, and of course to all their friends back home who see all their selfie pictures and everything else of them playing in the water and on the beach while they're back in the other white stuff. I'm not sure what that's called. I haven't seen it for a while. But we really appreciate that support, but also the bowl game as a whole. I believe each of you have been distributed for your reading later a packet of information. It has a lot of good stuff in here. When you get a chance, please go through and take a look at it. A lot of pictures in there that will show a lot of the things that we do to promote Clearwater and the Clearwater Beach area. From our website to publications. You also have a fan guide that we produced this year that's sent out to the fans of the different markets around the country. We bring in fans from over 40 states every year for the bowl game. And we really highlight Pinellas County, the Clearwater area in particular, and the beaches and so forth, because obviously that's something that's key. It's a great selling point for them to come down here. If you're going to go to Florida to follow your favorite team to a bowl game, you better go to the beaches, right? And you better go to Clearwater, which has the best beach in the country. So we really push that very hard. The key things that the Outback Bowl does and why it's even around for this community is to create an economic impact, and bringing those fans to town obviously does that. We also want to showcase the community. We want to showcase this destination. And again, as I mentioned, there's a lot of ways that we really push to do that. We want to do something that's really fun for the local community that they can participate in. And as you know, from beach day to all the other events we do throughout the week, and of course the game itself, these are all things that the local community can participate in, unlike some sporting events, which are great to have. Atlanta had the Super Bowl this week, and we're going to get it in a couple of years, which is fantastic in a lot of ways. But a lot of people here can't go to that, because it's so limited. So these are things that are great for the people who live here, as well as the effects that it's having for the community. And one of the key things we do too is distribute monies to the universities. We have to date distributed $148 million to universities from the Big Ten and the SEC and other conferences way back when, before we were affiliated with those conferences. But that money is shared with all the schools in those conferences, not just the teams that are actually here for our game. So we have distributed $148 million over our history, including about $6.4 million this year. And in addition to that, as Chuck mentioned, we did start a charitable initiative a few years ago, which to date has distributed $1 million to 89 local organizations. This year it's $500,000, and going forward it will be $500,000 at least each year that we'll be distributing to a number of different organizations, including those in Hillsborough County, Pinellas County, and the surrounding areas. So it's just an additional thing that we're doing to continue to help the community in ways even beyond our mission statement. But we feel it's important to make sure that that these groups are helped, and if we're in a position to do that, then we want to do that. So we thank you all so much, the city, the police departments, fire departments, EMS, the administrators in the county, who help so much with the logistics of the Beach Day event, which is a critical and very focal point of our bowl week for the fans coming into town, but also just your overall support of what we're trying to do to continue to impact the community in a positive way. And I have a little gift here for the council to put on display at the appropriate location. It's a show here, yeah. It's a little trophy, sort of miniature trophy, not as big as the one the team gets, but it's it's almost as heavy. I don't know. It's very good. So I just want to present this to you, and thank you all again for everything you do for us. So,
Thank you, guys.
Pull it out.
Without
Seeing you out. Chuck, I have to hold the trophy.
There you go.
Just don't throw it. Don't throw it.
Thank you so much.
And depending on which team wins, everybody gets either
Yes, Outback Steakhouse, yes.
right, gets a blooming onion or a saucy shrimp, I think.
Or coconut shrimp, yes. This year was coconut shrimp.
Coconut shrimp. Right.
Yes, it's a special promotion that Outback Steakhouse does.
And the bands stay right here on Clearwater Beach.
Absolutely. Yep. The college bands of both teams stay on Clearwater Beach in hotels here, along with, of course, obviously lots of fans and so forth, and they patronize a lot of the businesses, as you all know very well. So that's part of the reason why we do this. We want people to come here, see what we have to offer, come back and visit in the future, maybe come back and move here, bring their business here, but if not, at least spend money while they're here. And that's win-win for everybody. So thank you all for everything you do.
Thank you, Mike. I forgot to announce earlier that the fire marshal has placed a limit as to how many people can be here and how many people can be standing in the back. So if you're asked to leave, it's only because of the fire marshal requirements. And we ask that you comply with that request. Don't bring any other chairs in so that we can keep the aisles vacant and open in case of an emergency. So again, that is a fire marshal requirement. It is not something that we've decided to impose this evening. So we would appreciate your understanding. If you're standing in the back, we ask that you find a seat. If not, you may be asked to leave. So we would appreciate your complying with that. Next, this last Thursday, the Visit St. Pete Clearwater had the Beastie, I did it again, Joel, the Besties Award. And Clearwater and Clearwater Beach received the Best Beach Award winner for 2019, and we have a short video that is going to be shown regarding all the winners that were featured, and Clearwater did very well for itself. And we want, as behalf of the council, to thank all of our partners who help promote tourism in Clearwater and Pinellas County.
This is 2018.
Well, it's 2018, yeah. But this is this one. Oh. Those were the 2018 winners. The 2019 winners were some of the same ones, including the one that I just showed you. So we must have picked up the wrong one off of the Facebook page, I guess. I don't know what happened. But anyway, lots of repeats, and Clearwater did very well for itself. Are there any addition or corrections to the minutes of January the 17th?
Move to be approved.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the minutes of January the 17th. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Anybody from the public wishing to speak to an item that is not on the agenda? If so, we ask that you come forward at this time. Make sure that you've had a card filled out for the clerk, and you would give us your name, and you would have 3 minutes to speak.
My name is Joe Jablonski, Mr. Mayor and council members. As an engineer, I understand the merits of iterating on a design before taking it final. What I don't understand is how so much of the rest of Imagine Clearwater seems to be on hold until the bandshell seating count is finalized. I ask that the next showing of Imagine Clearwater to the City Council include an update to the plan reflecting community concerns so residents, like in the 15% review, can actually see where this plan is heading and that the community voices have been heard. Specific concerns I'm referring to include orientation and location of the bandshell, location and intrusiveness of the gateway, the bridge over Cleveland, and the South Bluff Walk. I discussed these concerns with Mr. Micah and the city engineer. They're waiting for the city council to direct them to proceed with integrating all of this information into the plan. So I feel this approach that I suggest will allow all of us to more quickly converge on an overall design we can all live with much sooner. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Your Honor, council members. My name is John Funk. When a city representative boasts that because of the investments that the city has made and been making, the city will hold the line on taxes, on our taxes, and then after 5 years of record-breaking increases in property tax revenues, instead of lowering the millage rate, thereby holding the line on taxes, the council opts to raise the millage rate by 15.5%. During the same time, the city is realizing a 9.7% increase in property tax revenue. Does it not give you pause that you do not have 55 or 50 million set aside for your Imagine Clearwater endeavor, which has shifted to imagine how big we can make a performance pavilion that may wind up being designed for certain special interest people after already using hundreds of thousands and soon millions of dollars from the city coffers, etc.? It appears that it will add up to millions of dollars spent without any money or progress on the green area or walkways or park playground areas, those other things which in the end appear will be ancillary to what the city really wants to develop the property for, and that is a mega performance venue using any and all funds that the city finds, borrows, and or gets from increasing our millage rates. Please read and take to heart the Tampa Bay Times article, the recent one, stating that apparently the Parks and Recs doesn't know how much concerts cost and apparently don't know where the money is going or how it is spent. Shouldn't that be important? Believe it or not, we citizens do care that the city continually spends and spends millions of dollars on studies designed to reinforce what certain elites desire to have in the way of what could be considered a land grab for the benefit of special interest, ignoring what truly should be beneficial to the citizenry. In addition to the Tampa Bay Times article, a recent letter to Mr. Maxwell from a citizen who was part of the original master planning of Imagine Clearwater is especially informative. His words ended in bold print, "Please stop talking about an entertainment venue before it's too late."
Again, let me ask if you have a cell phone or other device that goes off to please silence it.
Hello. Karina Morrison, 409 North Highland Avenue. How's everybody tonight? I'm not sure if I can get that right. I am with Shop Local for Good, and we're here to let you know a little bit about what we're doing in Clearwater. We launched a community market in November, and last weekend we actually added EJ's Urban Farmstead, which is locally grown in Clearwater organic produce. So we're really excited about that. We want to invite all of you to come out and visit us. We are growing. We are looking for local artists to add to the market to make it truly shop local for good. We also have, we currently have a fundraising campaign because the Benevolution Foundation is part of the Market Space for Good, which is a retail space located in Station Square Creative Suites. We're in Suite 11, and we're open Tuesday through Sunday. Starts at 11 a.m., and on Friday and Saturday we stay open until 9. We have an Artist for Good showcase in there. Some local artists are showcasing their work and donating a certain percentage to the Benevolution Foundation. What the Benevolution Foundation does is we're a nonprofit incubator. We work with all volunteer, locally focused nonprofits on how to be effective in the community. And the Keto for Good program is part of our Business for Good, hashtag Business for Good. $1 for each cup of keto coffee that you get from the Market Space for Good will be donated to the Benevolution Foundation. We have a couple of special events. On February 15th will be the Downtown Clearwater Fine Art Walk, third Friday. So we're going to have 600 block rocks, works and words of art on the patio of the Station Square Suites, and showcase some local artists and authors. On February 16th, we have a special guest to our Saturday market, Sparkles by Maxine. Y'all met Maxine at a future or a past city council meeting, and she's going to be showcasing and working there, and then they're going to film a promo of her in action, so we're really excited about that. February 22nd is Blast Friday. The Shop Local for Good team is partnering with Ruth Eckerd Hall, and we've got a hashtag Rocking 600 block, so we are getting vendors and food trucks for the 600 block. You know, Blast Friday goes 600, 500, 400. We're trying to encourage people to come from the main stage up to the 600 block. So last time, Vector Bar and Arcade had some pinball machines out front, so we're trying to involve all businesses.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. I just want to give a gift to Councilman Cundiff for coming and visiting our market and taking a tour. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Share with us.
Anybody else from the public wishing to speak to an item that is not on the agenda? If not, I will close public comment and move to the consent agenda, items 7.1 through 7.12. Anybody from the public or council wishing to pull an item off the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda. Oh, I'm sorry, did somebody want to think something else? Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda, items 7.1 through 7.12. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 8.1, Mr. Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. Approve a development agreement between Decade Properties, Inc., property owner, and the City of Clearwater, providing for the allocation of 27 units from the Hotel Density Reserve pursuant to Beach by Design, adopt Resolution 19-03, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Perry.
Thank you. Mark Perry, Planning and Development. There have been no changes to the conceptual site plan or the conceptual elevation since last month's council meeting. There were some changes to the development agreement as I outlined at this week's work session. Just to very quickly hit on them. There's been a limitation on bar service. Alcoholic beverage sales are limited to incidental sales of beer and wine, cooler sales. The availability of parking spaces has been limited to guests of the hotel and users of the marina component. Restaurant service is limited to continental style breakfast and the sale of prepackaged foods such as sandwiches and snacks. There's a limitation on amplified music. This is a standard condition in our development agreements. This one is strengthened in that no outdoor amplified music is permitted at the project at any time. There was one change to the development agreement, changing the time frame from 10 years to 20 years. Unfortunately, we have to walk that back to 10 years because 10 years is what's allowed by Beach by Design, so we have to stick with that. We've let the applicant know that, and the applicant has informed us that they're willing to kind of adopt all of these requirements in the development agreement, not only for the 10 years that's otherwise required, but they're willing to make them permanent as either a covenant or a deed restriction for the life of the project. So I just wanted to point out that sort of last-minute change. If there are any questions, I'd like to try to answer them.
Any questions for staff on agenda item 8.1? Mr. Hamilton.
Question for Ms. Aiken, the last point. What does that entail us doing? I mean, would it be part of the development agreement saying that these covenants are in perpetuity?
Will become covenants, yes.
They'll become covenants, but they will be enforceable in perpetuity?
As long as the project is a hotel. So, for example, if the hotel either is destroyed at some point, they don't choose to rebuild it, and they build something else, those covenants would not be in place. So they're limited to the hotel use.
Okay.
And Mr. Ungst, I think, can give you more detail on that.
Any other questions of staff from council? Okay. Thanks, Mr. Spear. Under the procedure, the next speaker is going to be a representative of the applicant who will speak for 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Brian Ungst, 625 Court Street, Clearwater, here on behalf of the applicant Decades Properties. At the beginning, I'd like to incorporate all of the argument and testimony. There really wasn't any testimony, but all of the arguments that were made at the last meeting as part of the record on this proceeding at second hearing. I want to reiterate, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to protect Clearwater Point, unlike any other opportunity. And that is that the city has the opportunity to enter into a contractual agreement whereby the city can dictate and control the uses on this property. And as Mr. Perry just stated, Mr. Kyrlieber has agreed that these restrictions, no full kitchen, no bar, no restaurant, no amplified music at any time, no public parking, no commercial use of the marina, no fueling, no offloading, nothing at the marina. That currently doesn't, those restrictions don't exist now, will be covenants that will run with the land and will exist no matter who the owner is, whether it's Mr. Kyrlieber or a successor owner, so long as that remains a hotel use. If it gets torn down, as Ms. Aiken said, for some reason, it could be rebuilt as a restaurant or bar, but it wouldn't be a hotel with a restaurant and bar. That is a big, big win for the concerned neighbors. That is a major, major, major good faith effort on the part of Mr. Kyrlieber to say, I want this to remain a quiet neighborhood. Mr. Kyrlieber lives just a block over on Bayside. He met with 15 of the leaders of the concerned neighbors last night for about 2 hours. And he said, I agree with you. I don't want this to be a party central. That's not what I'm doing here. That's not how I've operated this. He asked them, how many complaints have you ever had about the chart house over the years? And they said none. And he said, well, I'm going from 33 base units to add 27 units to 60 units. So I'm essentially doubling the size of the property. But I'm not changing the way it operates at all. So 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times no complaints is still no complaints. He also gave out his personal cell phone number. And he said, if you ever see someone accessing your beach from my hotel or trying to access your pool from my hotel, which shouldn't happen because we do have a small pool on the 5th floor, call me. Call me and I will deal with it. So he has worked very, very extensively with the neighborhood to try to address those concerns. I do want to address just some issues we touched on the last time. This property is zoned tourist with a resorts facility high land use. In Clearwater, we have flexibility, we don't have variances, and a property owner is entitled to the flexibility at a quasi-judicial hearing in front of the Community Development Board if they meet all of the general applicability and flexibility criteria. That means that Mr. Kyrlieber, if he meets the criteria, could go up to 100 feet. He could build a resort-attached dwelling, which would have no lobby, no real management. It could be basically an Airbnb, overnight rentals. At 100 feet. He could put a hotel there with a restaurant or a bar. Here's the other thing. Beach by Design and the comprehensive plan do not limit the amount of density rights that can be transferred onto the property so long as it doesn't exceed 150 units per acre. So we could go to 99 units and get those units by purchasing them on the open market. He doesn't want to do that. He doesn't intend to do that. But he could do it if this development agreement is not passed. So there is an element of protection and preservation that goes along with this development agreement. This is a current picture of the hotel as compared to the condominiums next door. It's got to be redeveloped. It's time to redevelop it. It's going to be redeveloped. This is Plan A, Option A, because Mr. Kyrlieber says this is the best option for the neighborhood and for me and for the city. He doesn't know what Plan B is. But Plan B could be any of those things that we discussed in terms of the 100 feet in height, the bars, restaurants, the live music, as long as it doesn't violate the noise ordinances and those particularities. I also want to show a picture of one of the main issues of concern that was raised last night was the private beach. And there doesn't appear to me to be any public access to that private beach. Obviously, if a boater comes up and wants to walk to the high water mean, that's fine. But I don't really foresee people coming through these private properties and somehow getting through these and onto this beach. If it's not happening now, it's not going to happen if we add 27 more units. Again, there's no alcohol sales, there's no bar, no restaurant, no amplified music at any time, no full kitchens, and we're willing to make those all part of covenants that will run with the land. Reserve the balance of my time and look forward to answering any questions that you have. I do have Mr. Pergolesi and Mr. Audi here as well to answer any questions that you have.
Council, any questions of either the applicant? Mr. Albrecht.
Yeah, I've heard some other concerns too that I wanted to address. Some of the letters, one person had a concern about the garage lighting, that took some pictures from the edge and said this is unacceptable, it's going to have too much light pollution in our neighborhood, and I wanted you to address that.
Yes, sir. I can do that. You want me to do that first, or?
Yes.
Okay. So I believe this is the picture you're referring to. I don't know. I didn't take the picture. It appears to me to be taken from the rear of the property and from the property itself. So in other words, this is from the edge or the Holiday Inn property, which the Holiday Inn uses this shared surface parking and parking garage that are owned by Mr. Kyrlieber. So this is not facing Gulfview or Mandalay. This is internally from the property. The city has a lighting ordinance, Division 13-3/1301 through several other sections that I'm very familiar with because I represented the Sandkey Civic Association and their neighborhood when the Marriott put up their blue lighting that did cause light pollution, and it did get to Sandkey Park, and it was a big concern for those neighbors, and we worked with the city. Mr. Delk was exceptional in that regard, as usual, but he was very, very good with that problem, because it was a complicated problem. We didn't want to shut down the hotel, but they had to fix it, and they had a big problem with how to do that. And what the law says is the lighting, exterior lighting, cannot cast more than a diffuse shadow on a neighboring property. So you cannot illuminate a neighboring property. That is the law, and we are not going to do that. Beach by Design also requires that parking structures have screening, have awnings, some type of architectural grill work or something to not cast light from those properties out onto the frontage of these streets and the residential property. So as you can see here, this is the garage. It's designed with these faux windows, the awnings, and the grill work which will make sure that all of the light is interior to the property and will not illuminate the sidewalk or any of the property outside. And you can see on the side, it's the same thing, the grill work up and down the side of the garage. So that's a requirement of Beach by Design. It's a requirement of the code. We will comply with it, and you know, that should not be a concern going forward.
All right, my other question was regarding another letter that I had that a lady had concerns about the, I guess the, where people would check in. And yours, yeah, the lobby, you said there was not going to be a lobby like a normal hotel. It would be in the part of the garage, and I'd like you to explain that to me if you would.
Yeah, I'll ask Mr. Audi to explain it in more detail, but there is a lobby. It is a normal lobby. It's about, from what I understand, it's about 1,000 square feet. If you recall the Hyatt, when you arrive off of Coronado, there's a small ground level lobby where you can do self check-in. There's a little desk. It will be the same as that. The Hyatt is a destination resort hotel. This is the definition of a limited service boutique hotel, but we'll have the same type of lobby. It'll be interior. All the accesses to the rooms will all be interior, but I'll ask Mr. Audi to maybe clarify anything on that if he could.
Mayor, members of council, I'm Robert Audi with the architectural firm of Audi Smith Architects in Clearwater. Brian has just put up a display which illustrates the location of the lobby on the first floor garage level. I believe last time when this subject came up, we wanted to emphasize that the lobby is diminutive. It's small. It's a boutique European sort of environment. There's no grand chandeliers. It's not designed to be a grand hotel lobby. It's simply for the function of checking in. If you notice from the display that once guests check in, they have access to an elevator there, which is shown in red. So that whole experience of checking, parking for guest check-in and registration parking, access to the lobby, and therefore access to the elevator is all very small and reserved in this particular project.
And it does comply. Beach by Design does require a lobby for units from the hotel density reserve, and this complies with that. Any other questions?
Any other questions, Mr. Goldberg? Okay.
Thank you all.
As a follow-up to that question, though, because others have expressed a concern that just just anybody can enter into the lobby and into the hotel itself. But you cannot, if you put your chart back up, other than the lobby entrance, the other elevator, to gain access to that elevator, you have to have a room key. Is that correct?
The elevators are room key activated. So that's why there's an elevator over here for guests who've already checked in, and you will have to have a room key to get into the elevators. That is accurate.
So no one from the street can come in to have access to the hotel?
No.
Okay. Any other?
I had thank you, sir. I had a question about the Beach by Design asks the hoteliers to have internal corridors, and I was wondering if you could show me where those internal corridors are on floors 5, 6, and 7.
Yes, sir. I'll have Mr. Audi address that again. I do believe we addressed that the last time, but we did update the conceptual drawings to emphasize the interior nature of the access for floors 4, 5, 6, and 7. I need to get to here. There. So this is floors 5, 6, and 7. And Bob, would you like to explain that?
First of all, probably the question involves levels 5, 6, and 7, because up through level 4, the parking garage has a different type of guest unit, and above level 5, 5, 6, and 7, the internal corridor system is shown in concept with the yellow color coding on this drawing. At level 5, 6, and 7, the internal corridor will provide guest room access, but it will also provide access to the exterior pool deck, which is just southward of the guest corridor. So the pool exists southward of the guest corridor, and there will be doors or entrances or something of that nature on level 5 with access to the pool.
So all of the rooms are interior access only. There's a hallway, a corridor. The elevators are interior only. So when you get off the elevator, you're interior. You stay interior unless you're on the 5th floor and you want to go to the pool. That's basically it.
But on 6 and 7, aren't they outdoors?
No, those are balconies.
Enclosed.
Yeah, those are, yeah.
The balconies are open as they are in the picture over here.
Let's see, that image?
Yeah, that is because that surface sits back away from the frontage of the building. That will be either some form of glass so that the people using that corridor on the upper levels will have a visual sense of where the pool is.
It'll all be enclosed interiors, and that's required by Beach by Design, and we won't get a development order from the CDB if we don't have that, so.
Any other questions?
Hold on 1 second.
I have one question. This is going to be a limited service for food, and where is that food going to be available and served?
Mr. Carlieber and I have discussed that. He doesn't intend to do a continental breakfast. He said that, you know, currently they put out donuts and bagels on Saturdays and Sundays, and that's what he'll continue to do. He will operate this hotel the same way he operates it now. So there won't be a continental breakfast. There isn't going to be, you know, any kind of food service.
Put them out where?
Well, so for example, I was at what was it? I think it was a Residence Inn or something. It was a limited service hotel in Aventura 2 weeks ago, and they had their continental breakfast in a room, in a unit. And you went in the unit and you got the food. I had to check in a unit because their lobby was under construction. But that's not, the food service is not at all an element of the project. So I don't know if you know where the food service would be in terms of the donuts and the coffee, or?
If I may add, most flag hotels, as well as independent hotels now, are beginning to focus, especially at this limited service area, are beginning to focus on what they call a treats area. And it's a small area adjacent to the registration desk that has packaged food, crackers, cheese, things of that nature. A couple of small console-type refrigerators with soft drinks and that sort of thing. In the case of, say, Hampton standards or Hilton standards, those spaces don't occupy any more than about 100 square feet within the lobby. And the merchandise is simply bought and sold at the registration desk. So it's a very limited operation. Doesn't take up a lot of square footage. And there's a lot of proprietary signage that promotes that type of service. So there's no continental breakfast, there's no big cafe type setting or those kinds of things that you might be thinking of.
But I'll ask Mr. Carlieber when I'm done here, and when I get back, by the time I get back at the end, hopefully I'll have a definitive answer for you. But he's told me, you know, essentially just in the lobby. It's not going to be a...
Which would be adjacent to the garage.
Yes, yeah. Be very incidental, bagels and coffee and donuts, you know, on the weekend, which is what currently happens.
Mr. Albert?
One other question. So we're getting a glimpse of what the development is going to look like, even though we're not voting on that part of it tonight. You've given that conceptual to us to understand how it's being built. Could you describe where it goes from here and who approves the final site?
Sure, yes. So from here, if the development agreement is granted.
Let me ask our city attorney to answer that question.
Sure, I would defer to Pam.
Be better for you.
Actually, Mr. Delk can probably give you the best outline since it goes to his board.
Okay.
Yeah, if you approve the development agreement, then the...
In fact, let's hold on. Any other questions of Mr. Ongst and the developer? Okay.
Thank you, sirs. Thank you.
If you approve the development agreement to move forward, then the applicant will have to make a level 2 approval application for Community Development Board hearing on the hotel project. and it'll undergo a staff review, DRC, city staff review, all of the development review committee, and then it'll go before the community development board for a final development plan approval. And at that point, the staff will recommend that the board will adopt a number of development order restrictions and conditions that will be consistent with and support the development agreement conditions that you are providing should you move it forward.
For example, the lighting question that has come up, that would be reviewed by you at that time? Or
Yes, it would. And lighting is always reviewed for projects like this. So what you want to do is you want to, if at all possible, the developer will want to, and frankly, I would think the neighbors will want them to maintain just regular ventilation of the garage. You do not want to mechanically ventilate. But there are treatments like louvers and things like that, and we've got them all over the beach where we've got some sensitive areas to block the light that would otherwise emanate towards, any other residential structures. It still allows airflow through the garage, which allows you to avoid mechanical ventilation, which is noisy, and neither the neighbors nor the developer would want to do that. So there's some treatment options that are widely used.
Any other questions of staff? Ms. Aiken or Mr. Help me understand the beach question. Whose beach is that has accreted east of the Sand Key Bridge? Do we know definitively that it belongs to Clearwater Point, or is it a public beach, or what?
We have not done that title work. We have not looked at that. My assumption, because they say it's their beach, and there is private beach in that area, that it is their beach. Now, that the public still can access up to the mean high water line, but there doesn't appear any way to get there except from the water. So I do not assume that that is not their beach.
Coincidentally, Council, this morning when I was coming over the Sand Key Bridge, it was low tide, and I mentioned to the city manager that slide that was up showed lots of water, but at low tide there's lots of sand, and almost to the point that it looked like it was creeping up to the channel marker that defines the channel that goes underneath the Sand Key Bridge. So I was just sort of curious as to if we had to go in and like dredge or something, what happens in a situation like that? I mean, would we have that authority to do so?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions for the staff. We got a letter, if I may, sir. We got a letter from Clearwater Point's attorney today challenging the legality of giving Hotel by Design rooms on this site. And I know you got this letter. Could you talk to that?
These are essentially the same arguments that they made last time when they saw you, and they were kind enough to put those in writing. We have reviewed it. We have reviewed the plan. We've reviewed Beach by Design. We've reviewed our ordinances and do not agree that this is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. I respect his opinion. However, we have a different opinion.
Let's clarify that a little bit more. There was a difference from reserve density and...
Yes, sir.
So clarify that for...
He was, the comp plan had some discussion of the pool and restricted pool units to a particular area. This is not pool units. These are reserve units. They were developed in a different section of Beach by Design, and they are more recent. I believe they were adopted in 2008. So the section he is addressing does not apply to, in our opinion, the reserve units.
Which we had developed for specific resort hotels?
No, that was the pool units,
Okay.
which was the first adopted, the resort density pool, hotel pool. And then this is the reserve units. And these were designed for and outlined very thoroughly in Beach by Design what they apply to. And they were designed for the limited service hotels, and it's very specific.
I have a second question then for you too. One of the allegations from the Clearwater Point folks is that this property years back was zoned incorrectly and should never have been zoned tourist because it was part of Clearwater Point. Is there any remedy for that? Is there any necessity to go back and correct that?
No, sir, I don't believe that there is any necessity, nor do I necessarily agree that it was incorrect. But I don't, at this point, we have an existing land use, we have an existing zoning, and you're not being asked by the developer to rezone anything, and staff has not recommended that you change zoning.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions, council, before we open it up to the public? Okay, we have, and it will become part of the record, the stack of mail that basically says the same thing in all of these letters. So this will become part of the record again as last week. Under our rules, there is, each person can come up and speak for 3 minutes. We need your name and address provided to the clerk. Or you can pool your time so that one person can have up to 10 minutes to speak. I know that there was a question last time, well, why did we ask questions of one side and not the other side? Those are the rules under this quasi-judicial hearing operates under. We don't ask questions of individual speakers.
Mayor, this is not quasi-judicial.
I'm sorry.
This is legislative.
Legislative, but
and you can ask questions or not as you choose.
Okay. But for the most part, we ask our questions of the staff and of the applicant. So that's the procedures that we've worked under. If somebody says something that we would want to question, we will question it either through the staff, more like we were doing earlier on the issues that were raised, because it is that's the legislative authority that we have. With that, we can be here all night if every one of y'all speak. But if you're going to get repetitive, you're not going to be doing anybody any favors. And we do have a time limit as to how much time we're supposed to allot. So we will try to work with everyone as best we possibly can. So I'm going to ask, like I did the last time, if you speak in favor, if you speak opposed, so that we can try to be fair to everyone. So the first person who wants to speak is...
Mayor, Mr. Chapman has accumulated 7 minutes. I'd like to confirm that the individuals are still in the room. Robert Weschler, you can raise your hand. Thank you. Nicole Lehorst. Nicole, okay, thank you. Roberta and Cideris. All right, thank you.
Okay.
No, Roberta.
Mayor, Councilman, my name is Robert Chapman. We've met before, and I was here about a month ago. I sent that memo in together with Ali from my firm, and we represent the residents on Clearwater Point. I have a PowerPoint here, but before I get started, the legislative versus quasi-judicial, I'd like to address that quickly. There seemed to be a little bit of confusion from the council last time when I was here that this was a quasi-judicial role, and there was talk of entitlement. There's no entitlement here if their development agreement meets your liking or any certain standard. This is a legislative decision. You have discretion and should deny this application. So I want to be clear on your role here for the council. The council's power, as a bit of background, is derived from a constitution. As you saw in my memo, that was changed in 1969. It's limited by law. Specifically, it's limited by Florida statutes. Under Florida statutes, development agreement shall be consistent with the local government's comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan here, as you see in the areas shaded by yellow, limits, if you read the verbatim words here, the use of the density pool of additional hotel rooms established by Beach by Design. That yellow area that's shaded there is clearly not on Clearwater Point. Decade Properties has asserted, and I understand, Ms. Aiken, and we obviously respectfully disagree with each other, but has taken the position that the word pool, as you just heard a moment ago, lowercase pool, means that only the resort destination density pool is governed by that geographic limitation I just showed you in the yellow area under the comprehensive plan. This interpretation is in conflict with Florida law. The Florida Supreme Court states that development orders, development agreements, as you may approve or deny today, must be in strict compliance with the comprehensive plan. The reason is, and many statutes talk about it, is that local governments must comply, and they have a duty to comply strictly. The language is mandatory with their comp plan. Otherwise, comp plans become rendered meaningless. For multiple reasons, this council has to look at this language and construe it. The language being the additional units, the pool of additional units under Beach by Design. The Florida Supreme Court says that words are to be given their plain language. That's their ordinary and plain meaning. The additional hotel rooms requested by Decade Properties are part of a, quote, density pool of additional hotel rooms established by Beach by Design. Ask yourself that question. Are these rooms they're requesting part of density pool of additional hotel rooms established by Beach by Design? Well, the plain meaning of those words would show you that the answer has to be yes. The geographical limitations would apply. Again, their argument is that pool, lowercase, equals resort destination density pool only. This council's historical and your predecessor's historical use of the word pool conflicts with this interpretation as well. Back in 2008, as Ms. Aiken mentioned, there was an ordinance passed, and that was the split between just one pool of units, lowercase pool, and hotel density reserve in the destination resort pool. At that time, the language was, and you can see it quoted, quote, pool of additional hotel rooms, end quote. That indisputably, everybody agrees, meant all of the additional hotel rooms under Beach by Design, every single one. When it was changed, the revised text says pool of additional destination resort hotel rooms. That 2008 ordinance was established with the express purpose of clarifying the difference between a destination resort and a mid-size hotel, a mid-priced hotel. The word pool, through that ordinance, was stricken everywhere throughout, unless it was capitalized and modified by the words destination resort, everywhere. No longer was the word pool used in isolation to describe only the destination resort pool. It described all units when used. Case in point, the December 8 comprehensive plan, 5 months later, uses the word pool. There is no additional words of destination resort to modify pool. So pool now still meant at that time what it always has, and it has never changed. It means any units, hotel units under Beach by Design. The comprehensive plan makes no distinction between destination resort units and mid-sized hotels, which if the intent was of your predecessors to make a distinction in the July 2008 ordinance, why didn't they go change the same language and modify it in the comprehensive plan? Well, clearly they would have, unless their intent was to maintain all units under Hotel by Design to be confined to the geographical area that I showed you. Without adding destination resort as a modifier, the word pool has always meant, without exception, all hotel rooms established under Beach by Design. Allocating the density units in this case to Decade Properties violates the comprehensive plan. As a result, it violates Florida law. When a party has to challenge this, it has a couple of options. The first is challenging the approval itself if this passes tonight. The second is to challenge the enforcement or compliance with that. The review is de novo. What de novo means is the court gives zero deference to this council's interpretation of its own code. The case law is clear, and as you'll hear from Ali, there's a 4th District case directly on point that talks about the lack of discretion. And it's abundantly clear that this council has no discretion to try to interpret that comprehensive plan just to try to make this project fit. If the application's granted, injunctive relief will be sought. That's where we'll end up. There's no deference at that point. The plain language, this uncapitalized word, it's plain language of what pool means, a group of things, a reserve, all of those, that's plain language. It's not capitalized and it's not defined, will be used. Your own words in the ordinance, which was enacted before it, will be used. And a court will overturn the passing of this and the acceptance of this development agreement. Even if building on this project has occurred at that point, the state of Florida has demanded that the building come down. The lesser of the evils here, which I know you want to protect these citizens, is to follow the law. It's never to not follow the law.
Thank you, sir.
Please deny this. Yeah, please deny the application. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Anybody in favor of the request of the applicant wanting to speak at this time? Someone in opposition?
Mr. Mayor, City Council, my name is Rudy Michalek. The Hotel Density Reserve established 1,385 units for hotel development. 1,350 are already authorized. That's just over 97% for 19 projects. Almost 60% of those projects are in the general area of the original geographic area for development. 6 other projects for the high-rise, high-density hotel corridor on the South Gulfview Boulevard, bounded by Clearwater Pass on the south, Sand Key Bridge, Gulf Boulevard on the east, and the Edge Hotel on the west. All 19 projects are in concentrated hotel and motel areas. Whether by coincidence, plan, or by design, City Councils, current and previous, have set the precedent that these units will be in high-density hotel areas, not residential areas. This Decade Properties project is an exception. City councils over the years have also set a second precedent. No projects for reserve units have been authorized south of Sand Key Bridge, on the north end of North Beach, on Island Estates, or until now on Clearwater Point. What do those have in common? They are all residential neighborhoods, different in building styles and types. Mr. Kyle Lever has been a good neighbor. But Mr. Oxt, his attorney, came to this chamber on January 17th and again today threatened us, our neighborhood, and the city council that if this exception for 27 units is not approved, you will punish us with a taller, possibly uglier building. We know the council is looking for a way to protect us from Mr. Oxt, but an alternative building could be better and more consistent with the neighborhood. Without this exception approval, in addition to the status quo, Decade's property has alternatives, which are to build condos under 2 different categories, which for 2/3 of an acre is 33 units or 20 units. He could then do whatever he wants, but within the law. Also note that the north side of Bayway, while zone tourist, is made up of condos, townhouses, and villas of various heights, an unmanned police station, and a private members-only club. Only the chart house is tourist in nature. In summary, the law, the comprehensive plan, 2 specific precedents by multiple city councils say no to this exception request. You have no obligation to approve it, and the remaining units could be placed in a more appropriate location. Mr. Ongst and Mr. Kyle have already had several bites at the Reserve's apple with other projects. Should they now be getting a special treatment for this project? Thank you for your attention, your understanding, and hopefully your support. I will ask, do you have any questions?
Anybody else from the public wishing to speak in favor of the proposal? In opposition?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Larry Bigelow from Clearwater Point. Let me summarize in one sentence what I'm about to say in greater detail. Clearwater Point is not a tourist district, but a high-density residential district where a monolith hotel does not belong. A little bit of history to start. Factual history about the Chart House land and building in question. In 1969, Mr. G. Paul Kohler developed the Clearwater Point land and built the low-rise condos. In 1976, Mr. Kohler established the Clearwater Point Yacht Club and built a recreation center, which is the site of the current Chart House at 850 Bayway Boulevard. That was for Clearwater resident members only. The Yacht Club and Rec Center was not a resort. It was private, not for vacationers. But in the late 1980s, city planners inaccurately zoned the property under CR 28 Commercial Resort. This did not delineate between public and private entities. As a result, our former Yacht Club and Recreation Center and the present Clearwater Yacht Club properties are now listed as tourist, even though neither at the time was open to tourists. CR 28 Resort did not match our private residents-only oriented rec center, and today tourist does not match either. In 1991, the CR 28 zoning label was the vehicle that allowed Decade Properties to convert our private rec center into luxury suites. Over time, CR Commercial Resort was rolled over to just Resort in 2006 and later to Tourist. Clearwater Point was not developed to be a tourist area, and it was not intended for hotels. Even Decade's Chart House advertising on their website claims that they are pleasantly removed from the hustle and bustle of popular tourist areas, end quote. This is quoted from their current website, as I said. Though the consequences of this zoning change may not have been evident to the city leaders at the time, we are now forced to deal with these consequences. Our community now faces the threat of a massively encroaching hotel in our residential community that does not fit or belong in our neighborhood. We feel this council should correct the previous error, not double down on it. Secondly, all other properties on Clearwater Point, as you've heard, are currently zoned HDR, in other words, high-density residential district. As per HDR Section 2-501 of the Clearwater Zoning Code, it states, quote, "The intent and purpose of the high-density residential district is to protect and preserve the integrity and value of existing stable residential neighborhoods of higher density," end quote. We believe the city's obligation is to live up to its mandate, to protect and preserve the integrity and value of our existing residential stable neighborhood. Please vote no to this proposed hotel project, and in doing so, vote yes for keeping our residential community free of inappropriate hotels. Thank you.
Anybody wishing to speak in favor of the proposal? In opposition?
Good evening. My name is Kevin Burns. I'm a resident of Admiral House at Clearwater Point. I'd like to talk about the traffic impact study presented at the last council meeting on January 17th for the proposed hotel. The study was conducted in the month of September during a Monday to Friday time frame described as peak time. The study concluded that the traffic patterns for the proposed hotel were acceptable. At the break, I asked the presenter why weekends and high tourist months were not included in the study. He said the study was conducted in accordance with the City of Clearwater specification, which defines peak time as Monday through Friday only. No weekend or high tourist months analysis were required. The reason for this specification, I assume, is probably because most traffic studies are for the mainland Clearwater area and really around business entities where you would want to know the traffic patterns Monday through Friday the normal business work week. However, applying that limited standard to Clearwater Beach lacks common sense, as everybody here will agree the peak time for traffic flows are weekends and high tourist months on the beach. Therefore, the current study for the proposed hotel does not provide a realistic and accurate assessment of the peak traffic time patterns. It also means that all previous traffic studies conducted on Clearwater Beach for the Hyatt, the Wyndham, Sand Pearl, Aqua, Edge, etc., did not provide an accurate and realistic assessment of the traffic patterns, as they only covered Monday through Friday. In my opinion, and if I was sitting in your seat, I would find this revelation embarrassing, realizing that all previous traffic studies approved was based on flawed logic. I have an immediate request, that the council request the developer of this proposed hotel to redo his traffic study to reflect weekend traffic and high tourist months. This would provide a more realistic evaluation of the traffic patterns. A future request would be to amend the City of Clearwater specifications to include weekends and high tourist months on future traffic studies for proposed Clearwater Beach hotel properties. Given several hundred new hotel rooms are in various stages of planning on the beach, having a realistic and accurate analysis makes common sense. It is time for the common sense to enter into the council's deliberations on the future hotel development plans on the beach. Thank you very much. I vote no.
I'm going to assume that there is no one here wishing to speak in favor of the proposal. So I will stop asking for that to save some time and ask somebody else in opposition.
Good evening. My name is Ken Riley. I live at in the Shipmaster Building on Clearwater Point. I wanted to first thank you for the time that you spent reviewing and understanding the information we sent you. That was no small feat. It has value to us. I assume your motivation was to be factual and to look at the details. That's our motivation as well. So my topic for tonight is to really ask questions about the development agreement. For 40 years, I was an engineer or an engineering manager. Details matter. You get the details and the plans wrong, the product you produce is not going to be right. Your customers are not going to be happy. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an attorney. But I think I can read English and I think I can understand it. So the development agreement, the one I reviewed, was dated January 18th of this year. For example, in section 6.1.14.4, there's a deed restriction that lists other sections that are not included in the document. Now, how could that be? I assume that you started with a standard template, with a standard agreement, and added the parts that were appropriate. Nobody cleaned up the parts that were incorrect, at least in my reading. Another detail that seems inconsistent is really about the number of units for this site. In one place it talks about 90 units per acre, in another place it talks about 150 units per acre. Which is it? Okay. In 6.1.6, there's a reference to interior corridors. There's attached drawings that aren't consistent with the drawings we've seen tonight or the comments that have been made here tonight. Section 25 talks about mutual amendments. Seems to apply that any future changes could be made between the builders on the builder's request and the city. How does a covenant apply to that? How do we have some protection or some understanding that the things that have been agreed to in the development plan won't be changed if it isn't specified more specifically than the city and developer agreement? So we have other examples, but if I was an engineering manager and I was being asked to sign this agreement, I would say no. I would send it back for review, And again, the differences are probably understandable. They're probably very natural. They can probably be easily rectified. But as standing, I don't think you have with you the basis of a legal agreement that you should proceed with. So thank you for your time. Thank you again for your diligence. Thank you again for the attention to detail.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Frank Gillen, and I'm here to speak to you tonight about the legacy that you will leave. Your legacy in protecting all that is best in the city of Clearwater. You can be proud of its development, but wise development, as you know, always takes place in the context of preservation. Preservation of what, if it is lost, cannot be duplicated or replaced, like the peaceful family community at the edge of busy Clearwater Beach. Such preservation is very dear to me personally. For being here, I am convinced, helped extend my dear wife's life. 22 years ago, we moved here from downtown Clearwater, where I was teaching at the University of Tampa, and she had been given a dire diagnosis for the leaky heart valves that had already been operated on once. Another operation, doctors said, would give her only 1 in 3 chances of survival. At her doctor's request, we put our trust in the good air, the beach, our good neighbors who helped, and above all, in the recuperative power, the recuperative quiet, the calm of Clearwater Point. Marie was happy here. She was able to see her grandchildren be born and grow, and we had 10 more years together. We were able to celebrate our 45th anniversary. Now, there's scores of stories like this, like mine, and you may call them sentimental, but I say to you that they, not buildings, are the very core of our human existence, the very fabric of our human lives. The essential question then becomes, will a large hotel destroy this neighborhood? Assurances have been made in good faith, I believe, by a decent man. But you and I know that a large hotel will eventually erode this neighborhood. How will these promises be enforced, even if they are written in the present document? Let's say 2 or 3 years down the road, it's clear that the hotel could do better with the restaurant. Customers are demanding a bar or music on the weekends. Occupancy isn't what it should be, so variances are asked for. We heard last time you grant a very large number, actually, of variances.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. Anybody else in line?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Councilors. My name is Susan Watt, and I'm here to present just a few disturbing anomalies that I've noticed. Corridors being covered has been talked about tonight, but the Beach by Design guidelines clearly state that to receive reserved rooms, the property must have covered corridors. The initial design didn't. It was changed on or before January 17th, and at that time, the planning department had no idea that it was there. They had not even been submitted. All of a sudden, there's covered corridors with some yellow magic marker. The city has already granted Decade Properties an astounding 168 rooms. But the drawings he submitted didn't show walkways. This drawing still doesn't. This drawing still doesn't. I don't know why, but the Department of Planning didn't get the results. before they were presented here. At the January 17th meeting, Mr. Onks maintained that the Chart House had been a hotel since 1971. Wrong. He also said the pool had been there since 1971. Wrong. It was built in the 90s, at which time Decade Properties received several variances to do so. Also in the 1990s, Decade Properties applied for a restaurant and a bar. The city denied his request. Mr. Onks said the proposed hotel has one dumpster and then emphasized, just like now. He also said and Mr. Adi later said 1 to 2 dumpsters. In fact, in Mr. Audi's own report, the development will be served by 3 5x8 rollout dumpsters towards Bayway Boulevard. 1, 2, or 3. That is 120 square feet of dumpster on that tiny little road. And Mr. Delk, I'm sorry, the Hyatt has a beautiful, large lobby. Anyway, I don't know whether it's incompetence or duplicity, but it doesn't really matter. The point is they attempted to slip under the radar non-compliance. Oh, shoot. Oh.
Somebody else needing to speak?
Honorable Mayor, Council members, my name is Ilana Wexler. I reside in Clearwater Point. I know that emotions are running very high today, but you need to make decisions based on facts, not emotions. So I would like you to consider 4 key factors here: safety, traffic, property values, and the concessions that were made by Decade Properties. Under safety, Clearwater police records show that where you bring a high-density hotel, increasing the number of tourists, that will increase the number of police incidents. Now, we have the report from the police records for the same period from 2010 to 2008, where you have the Clearwater Beach, including the residential areas of Island Estates and St. Key, and the one excluding them and concentrating more on where the hotels are. And the difference is that where you eliminate the residential area, the increase in police incidents go from 50 to 55%. So that will really bring a high-density hotel into the middle of us, threatening our safety. The traffic. I'm not going to elaborate. You just heard about it. But we have the traffic report that was done, has no validity because of when it was done, and it doesn't reflect the reality of our community. The property values. We did a chart, and we compiled a list of all the condos that were built in the high rises during the last 5 years. Now, we've divided them up to the 4th floor where there's no view and above. And we also segregated them by the one that were remodeled and non-remodeled so as to compare apples to apples. Well, the difference in either they were remodeled or not between the lower condos and the high condos is $33,000, the average value. Now, I know that we cannot talk about view and you cannot guarantee a view, but you're supposed to protect the value of our property. And a high hotel there will bring the prices down. The concessions made by Decade Properties, we heard a lot about them. And every time we bring an item, they say, oh, we'll cover that, we covered that. But the reality is that based on the Section 25 of the development agreement, they can come back a few months now and request, and those concessions can be easily amended. So we really don't feel that we are protected at all. Now, based on these factors, I'm asking you to vote no to the allocation of the 27 it. Please protect our community. Please listen to the words of our opening prayer that says that you are supposed to protect us and respect the communities that you have. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kathleen Beckman, and I live in Sand Key, Clearwater. I am here to support the 465 families of Clearwater Point and ask you to vote no to the allocation of 27 units to Decade Properties, opposing development of a 60-unit hotel on Bayway Boulevard. I believe the residents and taxpayers of this large neighborhood community are being more than reasonable in agreeing that the developer has a right to build on this property. Perhaps a smaller condominium building, but not a hotel. A hotel in the middle of this quiet neighborhood that is comprised primarily of senior citizens would significantly disrupt their way of life. Living next to a hotel means increased comings and goings at all hours of the day and night. It means increased traffic and congestion. It means more litter and more noise. Often, with beach hotels come rentals of bikes and scooters, further contributing to congestion and the influx of tourists. This will not fit in the small, quiet neighborhood of Clearwater Point. I implore you to vote no to this out-of-place and unwelcomed development. And because I have just a minute, I would say I am incredibly impressed with the passion, the dedication, the research, the intelligence, and the due diligence that these residents have presented before you, and I implore you to listen to them and consider their concerns. I think they deserve it.
My name is Janine Schaub, broker associate for Coldwell Banker, Clearwater Beach. I've been a local real estate agent, broker associate, on Clearwater Beach since 2011. Thank you, Mayor, City Council members, for your time. I know this is a daunting task, and I thank you for your consideration in this matter. Larry Bigelow has already spoken on the 2-501 high-density residential district, and that it is in place to preserve the integrity and value of our existing stable neighborhoods. Buyers are drawn to Clearwater Point because of quiet enjoyment. Okay? Public engagement here is important and a key to our success here. Planned development should provide benefits to neighbors, jobs, restaurants, amenities, public outdoor spaces to offset possible negatives. What does this hotel have to offer us? Our small, high-density residential community is not in need of gentrification or revitalization, as Mr. Unk suggested, nor are there any opportunities for this proposed development to preserve the integrity and value of our existing, stable, residential neighborhood. As real estate brokers, our sellers must complete a seller's property disclosure. Page 3, paragraph 10 reads as follows. Are there any existing conditions or proposed changes in the immediate neighborhood that could materially affect the value or desirability of the unit, such as noise or other nuances? The domino effect, folks, has begun. In January, I received 4 offers on properties in Clearwater Point. Upon delivery of the seller's disclosures to the buyers, along with the 89-page development proposal from the City of Clearwater, all 4 offers failed to execute into contracts. January 2017, we had 4 properties under contract. January 2019, we had 0. We currently have only 1 pending sale and have had only 1 closed sale for January 2019, which was a carryover from December 2018. And this is our high season. As the #1 listing and selling agent for Clearwater Point, I currently have no closing schedule. We are at a standstill. A 90-foot hotel, commercial hotel, is simply not part of our neighborhood fabric. One study published by John Rebchuk, November 13, 2011, reported that values of high-density neighborhoods that are primarily residential dwellings will see preservation, stability, and increased values with the development of like residential properties. The common threads running through our opposition of the decade property development is that a huge hotel, high-density building can crowd out residential real estate options. This will increase congestion and lower our nearby property values. To preserve and protect our property values, please vote no on granting the 27 rooms from the reserve for decade properties. Thank you.
Ma'am, your time is up. Under our rules, there is to be 30 minutes allowed on an item. We have exceeded that time limit. I see there's 3 more people to speak? Okay, so we will allow those 3 people to speak and then cut off public comment.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Mundar Antoon. I spoke at the last gathering. I have one simple thing to reflect to you, which is as objectively but personally and honestly as you can within yourselves and individually, the question would be, would you, if this was your neighborhood, if this was really where you lived, would you approve of such an undertaking or not? Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Thank you so much for all the time you've devoted to hearing us, to reading our letters, to reading our emails. My name is Jackie Rosenthal Pandy. I live at 830 South Gulfview Boulevard, Clearwater Point, 33767. At the beginning of this meeting, we said the Pledge of Allegiance. To me, the most important words of this pledge are liberty and justice for all. We implore you to vote no on the proposal for 27 more rooms in the Clearwater Point Enclave so that we may have liberty to live peacefully in our tiny enclave at Clearwater Point. We really feel that there was justice served if 1,000 voices, this is just a small representative of our voices, are heard over the voice of one developer. With all due respect, he has a lot of hotel rooms in Clearwater. Does he really need 27 more? That's my question. Okay. It's very emotional for all of us, so we appreciate your patience with us. We know that our globe, our country, our city are all suffering from overdevelopment. If we're being honest, we all know that. When you drive over the Sankey Bridge, it's a sea of hotels now. I first came here 30 years ago. When you saw more green spaces, you saw more of the water view and trees, vegetation. Now we have palm trees that are trying to hide the hotels, that are trying to make up for the lack of green spaces. We all know this in our hearts. It should inform our business decisions. It should inform how we conduct ourselves and how we preserve nature and our green areas. I'm a big fan of Sankey Park. I'm a big fan of all the beautiful nature we can enjoy in Clearwater. Let's preserve that. I mean, when is enough enough with development and hotels and high-rises? I guess I'll just close by saying I really hope that the voices of 1,000 people are heard over the voice of one developer. Thank you for your time.
Yes. I'm sorry. So he has, Mr. Ali has 6 minutes. Will Chris Stevenson, Mike Worrell, and Vicky Worrell. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Councilman. Before I begin, when you did say that 3 people were online, one gentleman was walking over.
It wasn't.
I apologize. I offered to ask for him. I'd like to begin by addressing comments that the council made last time we were here, that the developer could build a condo here legally. Mr. Hamilton, you made that point. Mr. Mayor, you made that point as well. Mr. Ongst tonight made the point that the council could do, that the developer could do several things legally. You've heard the citizens last time and this time speak about many different factors that should weigh into this council's decision. I'm here to speak about one factor, and that is the law. This council is bound by the laws of the state of Florida. Ms. Aiken, I respectfully disagree with the position that you've taken on the legal memo provided. I provided you, along with Rob Chapman, that legal memo to outline your obligations, your duties, and the laws that bound you, as well as many court decisions that have interpreted those exact statutes, those exact laws, and this exact situation. I want to start by saying that what you've done in the past is exactly that. It's history. In fact, the courts of this state have stated that. Village of Wellington versus Palm Beach Polo, Inc. And I quote, Florida law provides that a local government is authorized to enforce its regulations even if it had not previously done so. No matter what you did in the past in connection with the comprehensive plan, should not have a bearing on your decision today. Instead, you must apply strict scrutiny to the comprehensive plan. You must look at the words of the comprehensive plan, and you must determine, when strictly construed against the developer, does the comprehensive plan allow this development to take place here? Does this comprehensive plan allow these hotel density reserve units to be granted here? And the answer is clear, and the answer is no. Mr. Chapman went into detail about why that is. At the end of the day, you will have to decide whether the hotel density units can legally be granted. Again, Ms. Aiken, I respect the decision, your decision and the decision of the other members of the town staff, but I respectfully disagree. And at the end of the day, a court will be the final arbiter of what is legal. I want to be very clear that if you grant this application today, a court down the street, sitting de novo with no deference to you, will review it. So the decision becomes whether you ask the developer to develop something legally, which he can, which no one here is saying he cannot, a condominium, a restaurant, a hotel with 27 units. No one is objecting to those here. But we ask you not to go outside of the law, not to contravene your own comprehensive plan, not to make the same mistakes you may have made in the past. We ask you not to do those things here because we ask you to remain within the gambit of the laws of the state of Florida. I want to briefly bring to this council's attention one case with very similar facts from the 4th DCA. In Pinecrest Lakes v. Schittle, the court stated, and I quote, Section 163 requires that all development conform to the approved comprehensive plan and that development orders be consistent with that plan. The statute is framed as a rule, a command to cities and counties that they must comply with their own comprehensive plan after they have been approved by the state. The statute does not say that local governments shall have some discretion as to whether a proposed development should be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Consistency with the comprehensive plan is not a discretionary matter. The comprehensive plan must be strictly construed against the developer. Here, the 4th DCA did exactly that. And they concluded, the statute says that an affected or aggrieved party may bring an action to enjoin an inconsistent development allowed by the county under its comprehensive plan. The statutory rule is that if you build it, and in court it later proves inconsistent, it will have to come down. The court's injunction enforces the statutory scheme as written. The county has been ordered to comply with its own comprehensive plan and restrained from allowing inconsistent development. The developer has been found to have built an inconsistent land use and has been ordered to remove it. The rule of law has prevailed. Again, your decision here is whether to allow something legal to go up or whether to grant these units in contravention of the comprehensive plan. If you do, de novo review will be had by a court right down the road. The rule of law will prevail in a court right down the road. And whatever is built on that land will come down. Today, members of the council, Mr. Mayor, the choice is clear. Deny these additional hotel units and order the developer to continue with something that is both consistent with the comprehensive plan and legal under the laws of the great state of Florida. Thank you.
Council, we have exceeded our 30-minute time limit on this discussion. Our former colleague, Mr. Johnson, is in line. He was not in line when we limited, when we said we had the 3 speakers left. So before we allow him to speak, I would need to have a motion to allow him to do so if he still desires to speak.
I so move.
Is there a second? Motion has been made and seconded to allow Mr. Johnson 3 minutes to speak. All in favor say aye. Anybody from the public to speak to that? Any comments, council? Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Bill Johnson, and I appreciate I do have an aspect that has not been brought up, so I'd like to share that with you for your consideration. The hotel density units are a scarce resource that was created by the city after an extensive review for a specific purpose. And that review identified, and as documented on page 54 of Beach by Design, says that it's based on the assumption that 120 is the practical minimum for a number of hotel rooms that would be required in order to create successful and profitable mid-sized, mid-priced hotels. And so the creation of a hotel with 60 units is substantially different from that. It has been described by the applicant as being a boutique European hotel. That's not what the original intent of the density pool was intended for. I would point out, as Councilmember Hamilton pointed out at one of these hearings years ago, that the award of a density unit is a very valuable incentive for a hotel to be built, and they get value out of that in continuity for continuously as they get more revenue from the unit. This is awarding more value to a hotel developer for a boutique hotel that wasn't the intent of this density pool. Thank you very much.
With that, we have closed public comment, and the applicant. Well, are there any questions, council, that y'all might have right now, or we'll hear from the applicant? And he would have 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Brian Ungst, again, on behalf of the applicant. I appreciate your attention to this matter. I want to reiterate that we did read every single email and every single letter you received. We did read. We also went out of our way through several forms of contact, through Mr. Kyrlieber, through myself, to originate that meeting last night, which I hope was productive. It was certainly productive for Mr. Kyrlieber because he got to express how much he agrees with the neighbors about this remaining a quiet, functional, residential/tourist neighborhood, which it is. This is part of Clearwater Pass. Beach by Design says that Clearwater Pass is a distinctive area of mixed use, high-rise condominiums, resort hotels, ... Beach by Design contemplates that Clearwater Pass District will be an area of strategic revitalization and renovation in response to improving conditions on the balance of Clearwater Beach. I want to address that in terms of the legal argument that you heard. The comprehensive plan, this is the big controversy. The use of the density pool. Plain meaning, plain usage of the word. Pool, pool, reserve. Pool is a pool, reserve is a reserve. Before the reserve was created, there only was the pool. The reserve was specifically created because it is not the pool. And that's how it's always been applied. This is the limitation in the density pool, destination resort pool in Beach by Design. This is the limitation. This is where their legal argument says that all density reserve units have to go. That's where they think all of these units have to go. That's the destination resort geographic limitation. This is that on a map compared to where the 19 approvals have been made. Of the 19 approvals made of the density reserve, only 2 have been approved in the area limited by the density pool. 7 have been approved in Clearwater Pass District, which is where Clearwater Point is, including the JW Marriott and the Marquesas, which are right next to Clearwater Point. So in terms of the legal argument, a court is not going to ignore Beach by Design. A court is going to read these things in peri materia, meaning together, and the court has an obligation not to reach an absurd result. The court has an obligation to look at the plain meaning of the words, apply statutory construction, and reach a result that makes statutory and legislative sense. Beach by Design, page 65. Beach by Design also supports the allocation of additional density for resort development through the Destination Resort Density Pool established in section 5.b.1 of this plan, as well as the allocation of additional density for mid-price hotels through the Hotel Density Reserve established in section 5.b.2 of this plan. Two very distinct buckets of rooms. The very next page, I think, answers this question in my mind definitively. Height. A hotel can go up to 150 feet in height if it receives TDRs, if it gets units from the Destination Resort Density Pool, or if it gets units from the Hotel Density Reserve, where the subject property is located between South Gulfview Boulevard and the Gulf of Mexico, or on the west side of Coronado Drive. So just ask yourself this simple question. If the geographic limitation on the pool applied to the reserve, why would Beach by Design create a separate geographic limitation on the reserve units that can go up to 150 feet? It makes no legislative or statutory sense. We are very confident that if this issue is ever brought before a court, the court will read these things in peri materia, read them the way they have been applied consistently, where, again, 17 of the 19 projects that have been approved outside of the pool limitation. That's all I'm going to say about that. What I do want to remind you, again, is that these restrictions, this is the most restricted density reserve agreement that has ever been entered into. The city of Clearwater has never lost litigation over the allocation of density units. You just won a case on the Beach Walk case. That's not a concern of ours. What I will say, again, is that these contractual limitations are the opportunity to protect the neighborhood that the neighbors are asking for. The covenants will run with the land as long as it's a hotel. We could come back and ask for an amendment to the development agreement, but that would require this exact same process to start all over again. Everyone would get public notice, and we are not going to do that. It would make no sense. This project, again, is not designed to fit a restaurant or a bar. There's no room for it. There's no room for live entertainment. So I know there's a significant fear of the unknown, but what I will say again is this is Mr. Kierlieber's preferred option because it's the best option for the neighborhood and the best option for his property and the ambiance he's trying to preserve. If this option fails either here or in the court, which I don't think it will fail in court, there will have to be a plan B, which will not be restricted. Thank you.
Council, do you have questions that you want to ask for staff, and then we'll take our recess? Any questions? No questions from y'all, because I'm going to ask some questions, and then that's going to be it. We're going to take our recess. Okay. Help me on this traffic study, because I find it real difficult in using common sense to think that 27 more units will cause a tremendous traffic jam 7 days a week in Clearwater Point. So is there something wrong with the way we do traffic studies?
No, I think probably, I recall early in my career in Clearwater, I was out somewhere looking at a site with our land resource people, and I saw a little number on a tree in the road, and I said, what is that? And they said, well, that every tree in the city of Clearwater in the right-of-way there is cataloged as to type and health and everything else, and that somewhere over in Public Works there's somebody with a computer that's got every street tree over 30 square miles and a few thousand miles of roadways probably cataloged. There's just so much more that we do in the background that I think is hard to understand. Clearwater Beach is probably the most studied traffic place in Pinellas County. When we entered into the original Hotel Density Reserve, it was a concurrency-based number, the 1385. So we did a comprehensive traffic study for the entire beach. So we know and we've known for years really what our capacity is to add units to the beach in order to still maintain really at this point what is more a self-imposed standard, if you will, for the city in terms of concurrency and traffic. And we know that every year we continue to look at the traffic and the backup and the travel time delays on and off of Clearwater Beach. And I think what's difficult is that the level of research and analysis on this goes well beyond any individual 60-unit hotel down there that gets proposed to us, because really all those numbers do, it's more probably important than modal or directional split, that is to say whether they use a car or take a bus or a trolley, or whether they go out and turn left or turn right. It's really more about validating for our records and the research is the numbers that are generated by those hotels, because we measure those against the large traffic study we did in 2008 and the 1,385 unit impact. So I think, that's it's probably more difficult to understand than it is to, it may not make a lot of sense as to why we approach that, but this is really a validation continually of the numbers that we've researched started when we created the reserve. Does that help some? I mean, the trip generation of a hotel this size.
The common sense answer to me would have been 27 hotel units over a 24-hour period is a little more than one extra car a day, is an hour. And I don't see 27 cars causing a huge traffic jam.
Probably in the 30 to 50 range PM peak hour. But the volume capacities out there, we're not approaching a capacity issue on the roadways in that area.
Let me compliment y'all, because y'all have been very organized, very disciplined, and that is most appreciated. Now we're trying to ask some questions and get some clarifications. You may not like our questions or the way we're asking them, but we're asking the questions now. It's our turn. So please, just be patient with us. Ms. Aiken, there was obviously there's a disagreement.
Yes, sir.
And we're not going to discuss that disagreements here. But Mr. Dell, as I recall, because I was on council when we first started talking about this, I sort of remember your telling us that these units were for a different intent, that they were for smaller, mid-price, limited service hotels as opposed to the ones that we were talking about initially. And from my previous experience, sometimes legislative intent carries a lot of weight. Would not that be our legislative intent when you were having that discussion with the council when they agreed to this additional reserve for limited service properties?
Yes, the intent was a generalization of limited service mid-size hotels, and we gave the example of up to 120 rooms. And a lot of that had to do because of the impact or the employment, the staff level that it took to support hotels in that range. You didn't get a lot of break, in other words, on the numbers of employees to support the hotel, below 120 rooms. So it's pretty similar whether you probably a hotel like this, a small 60-unit hotel versus a 120-unit. But we've allocated the range of the units over, hotels smaller than this, smaller numbers of units, and we've certainly gone well above this in terms of substantially larger facilities. So I think, if I would say I have the perfect measure of whether or not we're complying with the intent, and that is the 5 of you, because this is a discretionary item entirely. It's completely within your decision as to whether to allocate it or not. So what we bring you from a staff standpoint is what we think fulfills the objectives of the hotel density reserve, but ultimately you will decide intent and whether it's consistent with that when you make a decision as to whether or not you grant the units.
Ms. Aiken, clarify for us, because the question was raised, well, what if they change their mind and they agree to it now, and 5 years from now they come back and ask for a restaurant or a bar or whatever? Once it goes into the covenant, that change isn't as easy, or?
No, sir. They will agree to restrictive covenants that will run with the land until and unless such time as it is no longer a hotel. Their obligation to do that will be in the development agreement, and then before they can pull permits, those covenants must be recorded.
So that makes it even more stronger.
It does. And additionally, coming back to amend the development agreement would, as Ms. Tronks has stated, require them to come back to you. But also, they would have to go back and have their site plan re-reviewed, and it would go back through the public hearing process through Community Development Board. So it would be many steps, and not easy steps if it were a hotel. Now, they could abandon their development agreement and not run a hotel, not have a hotel, and propose a totally different development, which would then require review.
And not necessarily come back to us.
It would not unless there was a development agreement, which would be very unlikely in that circumstance.
So a condominium?
Condominium would not come to you for a review. The other uses allowed under the tourist district would not come back to you for review. This only comes to you because of the density units.
And if it's a condominium, we don't get to review the condo documents either.
You review nothing.
Right. We will take a recess until 8:10. Good news this time, the restrooms are working. Okay.
Okay, so.
to get started. I'd like to reconvene the meeting of February the... Ma'am. We're reconvening our meeting of February the 7th, agenda item 8.1. Council, I need a motion, please.
I will make a motion to approve agenda item 8.1 at this point.
Is there a second? Second. Motion has been made and seconded to approve agenda item 8.1. Comments, council? Mr. Hamilton.
This has been a very, interesting and difficult issue. I agree with everyone here. The traffic study doesn't do you any good to study traffic on a Monday through Friday in September. It also doesn't do you any good to do a traffic study in high season or especially a high season weekend, because I think everybody in this room can agree the traffic a 60-room hotel is going to add to a spring Saturday is absolutely unnoticeable. It's just because we're already so busy with traffic. So I agree. I don't put a lot of I didn't even really pay that much attention to the traffic study. I appreciate people saying, it's going to hurt our property values. That's a unproven, as of today, unsubstantiated prediction. Look at all the development that's happened. Everybody was saying we're going to overdevelop the beach and all our property values are going to go down. Property values are at an all-time high right now. So, it has not had that effect. I appreciate the attorneys for representing Clearwater Point. However, Ms. Aiken is she's not 6 months out of law school. She gives us our advice, and she says that our Beach by Design was, which I was here when we did Beach by Design, was absolutely thoroughly vetted. Our application of Beach by Design and our in conjunction with our city ordinances has always been where it's supposed to be according to her. And as you heard, there was a lawsuit recently filed, or not even that recently now, but just got its final resolution, and the city's position prevailed. So it is, I understand how difficult it is, but I still go back to the property owner has rights to develop his property. It is zoned tourist. Like it, hate it, or for whatever it is what it is. And he owns that property. He has the right to develop it within parameters that the city has established. Everything he's asking for, including the additional units, is within those parameters. I just, it's been said, and I know it's come out lately, because we made the point previously, in the last 25 years, he's been operating the chart house, and it's operated very much in sync with the neighborhood. There's been little to no conflict. And now, as soon as that statement is made, I'm hearing, oh, that's not true. Well, the number of conflicts has got to be very small, because there's not a lot of police records of issues. There's none of that. And yet we're supposed to believe that increasing the number of units, and it's still the same operator, he understands the neighborhood, he's been in it for 25 years, but we're supposed to believe now that the additional units are all of a sudden going to create an epidemic of negative issues for the neighborhood. I'm not able to personally draw that conclusion. I know you're not going to be happy with my vote, but I'm comfortable in my position, and I really believe that over time, once this is constructed and in operation, many people on Clearwater Point are going to find it to be such a nice property that your family and friends are going to want to stay there, given the close proximity to your units, to your residents, as well as just the quality of the property. So you can shake your head no, and you can disagree with me, but I'm willing to wait, and I promise, I'm not the kind to do it, but 3 years from now, when it's all done and up and operating, I'm not going to sit here and say I told you so, but in my mind, I hope I'm able to tell myself, if I wanted to, I could tell those people I told you so. So,
Mr. Kondo.
In Beach by Design, one of the key points, and it's a voluminous, big volume, but what it says is that Beach by Design wants to protect existing stable residential neighborhoods. I can't get my head around how a 60-room hotel is going to protect Clearwater Point. If everything were found to be legal, and I think there are zoning questions and others that will have to be answered, but if everything were found to be legal, I don't believe that a hotel of this size would be right. It may be legal, but it may not be right to build there. I agree with some of you who said that the best fit maybe would be another condo built on that site, which is next to all the other condos and like the other condos in Clearwater Point.
Again, excuse me 1 second. Let me ask that if you have a cell phone or other device, to silence it, please.
So I'm going to stand with the overwhelming majority of the residents of that area and vote against adding the 27 extra units.
Mr. Publix.
Yeah. Mayor, I took the time and went down and met with some of the folks about 3 or 4 weeks ago and drove the entire neighborhood and then walked the entire neighborhood, well, quite a bit of it, and listened to a lot of the concerns and comments and weighed in everything, read every single letter. And a couple things I noticed. The chart house was in need of redevelopment. It was in need of repair, or it very least paint job. I mean, and in addition to that, the city-owned lot next to it, we need to do some maintenance on that. It needs to be cut. It needs to be, there's mounds of dirt almost touching the street. But the question was asked earlier of me, if I lived out there, and I'm a neighborhoods guy, that's where I came from, would I want that structure there? And the folks that I talked to had said that was actually the chart house as it was a good neighbor, because a lot of their families and extended relatives, they come and stay there, and they've worked out either a deal or it was just a great relationship. So the answer to that question would be yes. I would want that there, as opposed to anything higher, anything that didn't have the current restrictions there, because I would want that same relationship with that hotel owner to bring my family and friends and everybody else to come there. So what I would fear would be the plan B, that the alternative that Mr. Onks had talked about, because then I couldn't control what would be there. So for me, I think it is an enhancement. I think it is an opportunity for all of you to have your own, so to speak, private little hotel, that you'll be able to have the same arrangement with Mr. Kierlieber as you go forward. The security issues, the traffic issues, I mean, it's not out of character with the other condos that are right across the street. So yes, it's a hotel, but it's not massing, it doesn't take up any bigger footprint. So the answer to me would be, yes, I would want them as a neighbor, because first of all, if I was a family party, I think the people that are going to rent those hotel rooms when there's no amenities there are going to be just like you. They want that quiet, secluded hotel where they don't have the hustle and bustle 5 blocks away. They're not going to contribute to the parking problem because all of their parking is self-contained in their unit. The one question I did have that was brought up, I thought a very good valid point, were the rental, goofy cars, all that other stuff, where will they park if there's only allowed parking for guests of that hotel? How do we control that? Because that's an element that I don't think is appropriate for that neighborhood. So I'm going to support the development agreement in lieu of their plan B.
Mr. Albrecht.
You know, from a first meeting that I had with the representatives, I thought they were very, very, very nice, cordial. They stated their points succinctly, and my suggestion at that meeting was that I hoped that they would contact the hotel owner and talk to him, because he's a longtime owner of that hotel in the community. He realizes the needs of Clearwater Point, and I found out that they were advised not to talk to him, and I was disappointed. However, I stated that Monday, and since then, I guess somebody listened and they got together. All of the concerns, or most all the concerns that I've read in every letter have been addressed. And this owner knows this neighborhood. He has, you know, it's been brought up by the attorneys here, their argument that is we're doing something illegal, which we aren't doing anything illegal. I got to admit, I disagree with their argument. I mean, look at Clearwater Beach and how it's developed. I mean, that didn't just develop illegally. And I have confidence in our city attorney. So I don't want to be, I feel like, you know, I've been put under the microscope here doing something illegal. We're not doing something illegal. This owner has the right to do this on his property. And because he's giving the concessions forever, it shows that he's real serious about fitting in the neighborhood. They won't be able to be addressed unless he decides not to make it a hotel. So his hotel needs to be revitalized. I've seen it. To me, it's like a non-conforming use. The insurance rates must be terrible because it was built in the, I don't know, back in the 70s, and everything now has to be built up above sea level for 16 feet. So he needs to bring it into compliance. And I think he has the right to do that. And so I'm going to vote to give him the 27 units.
First off, let me again thank y'all for the way that you've conducted yourselves during this meeting. You probably can go out into the community and give lessons on how you ought to approach a city council with your arguments, because you have not been repetitive. You have raised valid concerns that we have in fact considered. So we appreciate, all of us appreciate the way you have conducted yourselves. And if you've counted, you already know that you've got 3. Let me also thank Mr. Kylieber, because he has gone much further in trying to work with you and with us to address some of the concerns. Your attorneys threatened us when they said, if you don't vote our way, we're going to take you to court and you're going to lose. My question to your attorneys would be, if you take us to court and we win, will you accept the decision of the court? Or will you file another appeal and drag this on and drag this on? This has been a very difficult decision for us. You are a residential neighborhood. He is in a tourist district. You have said that let him build a condo. We'll address that later. But what you don't understand is that we can't control that. This is what we can control. And it appears that we have answered the major concerns that you've had. We're never going to make 100% of you happy. We're not going to make 100% of us happy. But then I remember another decision that we had as a council. It was a different decision in terms of what was being considered. It was to consider a rezoning. And the neighborhood came out en masse. And council voted in favor of the neighborhood to deny the zoning request. The city was taken to court, and the city was lost that decision. And yet that property today is the same as it was 10 years ago. No new development has taken place there. Our staff knows I haven't had sleepless nights because I sleep very well at night. But staff knows that I have been agonizing over this. We all have been agonizing over this because you may not believe this, but we do care about our neighborhoods. And we do care for what is right for the residents. But we also have some leeway here and there and more importantly, to do what we feel is right for the city of Clearwater. So 3 of my colleagues have said yes, 1 has said no, and I still don't know what is the right decision to make. Because like Mr. Hamilton said, chances are you're going to like what's going to be built there, even though you may not want to admit it now. And you probably would like what is going to be built there much more so than an outdoor bar and restaurant that will have a pool and music all day, all night. You probably would like what is being suggested there more than a hotel or a condominium, I should say, that has short-term rentals and comes in and out, and we have no control over that. And I'm stalling because I also then come back to, but 10 years have passed and nothing has been done on this other property. Motion has been made and seconded To approve agenda item, Ms. Aiken?
I'd like to get a little bit of clarification to make sure there is one change to the development agreement beyond what you have in front of you, and that is to correct one of the numbers on 6.1.14.4. It currently, the correct numbers for the sections that will contain the deed restrictions are 6.1.14.1 through 6.1.14.3. So it was, the agreement in your packet has the wrong numbers in that section, and this corrects those numbers.
Okay, so we need a motion to
correct the numbers in the development agreement.
Can I have a motion to amend?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to amend the agreement to coincide numerically. Anybody from the public to speak to that motion? Thank you. Any other comments, council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No? Okay, it's 4-1. Okay. And that was on the motion to amend. Okay. So now the question is to approve agenda item 8.1 as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
No.
No. Motion carries 3-2.
I have a resolution, Mayor.
Yes, resolution 19,
Resolution number 19-03, a resolution of the City of Clearwater, Florida, approving a development agreement between the City of Clearwater and Decade Properties, Inc., providing an effective date.
I move that we adopt Resolution 19-03.
Second.
motion has been made and seconded to adopt resolution 19-03. Anybody from the public to speak to that motion? Comments, council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Motion fails 3-2 with Mr. Cundiff.
Passes 3-2.
Motion passes with Mr. Cundiff and Criticus in opposition. Okay. Agenda item 9.1 is called.
No, 9 point. They changed the
Second
number.
reading.
You want me to start?
No, I got it.
9.1.
Ordinance number 9210-19, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, vacating portion of a certain 5-foot gas line easement as described in official records, book 6366, page 1043, official records of Pinellas County, Florida, lying in the northwest 1/4 of section 22, township 29, range 15 east, Pinellas County, Florida, providing an effective date.
Motion to adopt ordinance 9210-19 on third reading.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to adopt ordinance 9210-19 on third reading. Anybody from the public to speak to this motion? Comments, council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 9.2. Ms. Aiken.
Ordinance number 9211-19, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, annexing certain real properties located generally north of Drew Street, south of State Road 590, and within 1/4 mile west of North McMillan Booth Road, whose post office addresses are 3040 and 3076 Hoyt Avenue, all in Clearwater, Florida 33759, into the corporate limits of the city and redefining the boundary lines of the city to include said addition, providing an effective date.
Motion to adopt ordinance 9211-19 on second reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt ordinance 9211-19 on second reading. Anybody from the public to speak to this motion? Comments, council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 9.3. Ms. Call.
Ordinance number 9212-19, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the future land use elements of a comprehensive plan of the city to designate the land use for certain real properties located generally north of Drew Street, south of State Road 590, and within 1/4 mile west of North McMullen Booth Road, His post office addresses are 3040 and 3076 Hoyt Avenue, all in Clearwater, Florida, 33759, upon annexation to the City of Clearwater's residential low RL, providing an effective date.
Move to adopt ordinance 9212-19 on second reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt ordinance 9212-19 on second reading. Anybody from the public to speak to this motion? Comments, council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 9.4, Ms. Aiken.
Ordinance number 9213-19. An ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the zoning atlas of the city by zoning certain real properties located generally north of Drew Street, south of State Road 590, and within 1/4 mile west of North McMillan Booth Road. His post office addresses are 3040 and 3076 Hoyt Avenue, all in Clearwater, Florida, 33759. Upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as low-medium density residential, LMDR, providing an effective date.
I move that we adopt ordinance 9213-19 on second reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt ordinance 9213-19 on second reading. Anybody from the public to speak to this motion? Comments, council? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 9.5. Ms. Call.
Ordinance number 9214-19, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, annexing certain real properties located generally north of State Road 590, west of Booth Road, east of U.S. Highway 19, and south of Sunset Point Road, whose post office addresses are 1836 Maryland Drive and 2655 Morningside Drive, all in Clearwater, Florida, 33759, into the corporate limits of the city and redefining boundary lines of the city to include said addition, providing an effective date.
Motion to adopt ordinance 9214-19 on second reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt ordinance 9214-19 on second reading. Anybody from the public to speak to this motion? Comments, council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 9.6, Ms. Aiken.
Ordinance number 9215-19, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the future land use element of the comprehensive plan of the city to designate the land use for certain real properties located generally north of State Road 590, west of North McMillan Booth Road, east of U.S. Highway 19, and south of Sunset Point Road, whose post office addresses are 1836 Maryland Drive and 2655 Morningside Drive, all in Clearwater, Florida, 33759, upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as residential low, RL, providing an effective date.
Move to adopt ordinance 9216-19 on second reading.
Second.
Were we in 16 or
15.
15.
15, correction.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt ordinance 9215-19 on second reading. Anybody from the public to speak to this motion? Comments, council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Ms. Call.
Ordinance number 9216-19, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the zoning atlas of the city by zoning certain real properties located generally north of State Road 590, west of North McMillan Booth Road, east of U.S. Highway 19, and south of Sunset Point Road, whose post office addresses are 1836 Maryland Drive and 2655 Morningside Drive, all in Clearwater, Florida, 33759, upon annexation to the City of Clearwater's low-medium density residential LMDR, providing an effective date.
I move to adopt ordinance 9216-19 on second reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt ordinance 9216-19 on second reading. Anybody from the public to speak to this motion? Comments, council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 9.8, Ms. Aiken.
Ordinance number 9218-19, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, annexing certain real property located on the west side of Daniel Street, approximately 210 feet southwest of Charles Avenue. His post office address is 2720 Daniel Street, Clearwater, Florida, 33761, into the corporate limits of the city and redefining the boundary lines of the city to include said addition, providing an effective date.
I move that we adopt ordinance 9218-19 on second reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt ordinance 9218-19 on second reading. Anybody from the public to speak to this motion? Comments, council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 9.9, Ms. Call.
Ordinance number 9219-19, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the future land use element of the comprehensive plan of the city to designate the land use for certain property located on the west side of Daniel Street, approximately 210 feet southwest of Charles Avenue, whose post office address is 2720 Daniel Street, Clearwater, Florida, 33761, upon annexation to the City of Clearwater Residential Urban RU, providing an effective date.
Make a motion to adopt ordinance 9219-19 on second reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt ordinance 9219-19 on second reading. Anybody from the public speak to this motion? Comments, council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 9.10.
Ordinance number 9220-19, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the zoning atlas of the city by zoning certain real property located on the west side of Daniel Street, approximately 210 feet southwest of Charles Avenue. His post office address is 2720 Daniel Street, Clearwater, Florida, 33761. Upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as low-medium density residential, LMDR, providing an effective date.
Move to adopt ordinance 9220-19 on second reading.
Second.
Is it 19 or 20?
20.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to adopt ordinance 9220-19 on second reading. Anybody from the public to speak to that motion? Comments, council? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously.
What did I say?
19. Ms. Call.
Ordinance number 9221-19, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, annexing certain real properties located generally north of Drew Street, south of State Road 590, and within 1/4 mile west of North McMullen Booth Road, whose post office addresses are 808 Glen Oak Avenue East, 3048 Lake Vista Drive, and 3064 Hoyt Avenue, all in Clearwater, Florida, 33759, into the corporate limits of the city and redefining the boundary lines of the city to include said addition, providing an effective date.
Move to adopt ordinance number 9221-19 on second reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt ordinance 9221-19 on second reading. Anybody from the public speak to this motion? Comments, council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 9.12, Ms. Aiken.
Ordinance number 9222-19, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the future land use element of the comprehensive plan of the city to designate the land use for certain real properties located generally north of Drew Street, south of State Road 590, and within 1/4 mile west of North McClellan Booth Road. His post office addresses are 808 Glen Oak Avenue East, 3048 Lake Vista Drive, and 3064 Hoyt Avenue, all in Clearwater, Florida, 33759, upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as residential low RL, providing an effective date.
I move that we adopt ordinance 9222-19 on second reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt ordinance 9222-19 on second reading. Anybody from the public speak to this motion? Comments, council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 9.13, Ms. Call.
Ordinance number 9223-19, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the zoning atlas of the city by zoning certain real properties located generally north of Drew Street, south of State Road 590, and within 1/4 mile west of North McMullen Booth Road, whose post office addresses are 808 Glen Oak Avenue East, 3048 Lake Vista Drive, and 3064 Hoyt Avenue, all in Clearwater, Florida, 33759, upon annexation to the City of Clearwater as low-medium density residential LMDR, providing an effective date.
Make a motion to adopt ordinance 9223-19 on second reading.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to adopt ordinance 9223-19 on second reading. Anybody from the public to speak to this motion? Comments, council? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 9.14, Ms. Aiken.
Ordinance number 9226-19, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, vacating a 3-foot wide utility easement as recorded in Official Records Book 4361, page 1985 of the Public Records of Pinellas County, Florida, and a portion of a 10-foot wide utility easement as recorded at Plat Book 39, page 67 of the Public Records of Pinellas County, Florida, lying in the southwest 1/4 of Section 6, Township 29 South, Range 16 East, Pinellas County, Florida, providing an effective date.
See if I can get one right. Move to adopt ordinance 9226-19 on second reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt ordinance 9226-19 on second reading. Anybody from the public speak to this motion? Comments, council? Good job, Mr. Poblaze. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 9.15, Ms. Call.
Ordinance number 9227-19, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, vacating a portion of platted drainage and/or utility easement lying in Lot 16, Block I, Northwood Estates, Tract F, as recorded in Plat Book 77, pages 46 through 47 of the Public Records of Pinellas County, Florida, lying in southeast 1/4 of Section 29, Township 28 South, Range 16 East, Pinellas County, Florida, providing an effective date.
Move to adopt ordinance number 9227-19 on second reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt ordinance 9227-19 on second reading. Anybody from the public speak to this motion? Comments, council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 9.16, Ms. Aiken.
Ordinance number 9228-19, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending Section 7-102 of the Community Development Code to modify the notice and hearing procedures for nuisance code enforcement cases, readopting and reaffirming the portion of Ordinance 6526-00 that amended Section 7-103B of the Community Development Code and authorized the Code Enforcement Board or Special Master to impose fines greater than the limits previously allowed by law, amending Section 7-103E of the Community Development Code to permit the Municipal Code Enforcement Board to issue orders related to the nuisance code enforcement cases, amending Section 7-103H of the Community Development Code to provide for one or more special magistrates to exercise the powers as provided in this section in state law related to code enforcement and to provide for an appeals process to contest a citation, which includes the assessment of administrative charges and civil citation penalties, amending Section 8.102 of the Community Development Code to define the term irreparable or irreversible violation, creating Appendix A, Section 20, civil citation penalties, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Can you read that again?
No.
I make a motion.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
I make a motion that we adopt ordinance 9228-19 on second reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt ordinance 9228-19 on second reading. Anybody from the public to speak to this motion? Comments, council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Ladies, good job. Y'all did that in
15 minutes. I timed it.
You did. Perfect.
the challenge worked.
It did.
Mr. Horn, do you have any other business? For
Yes, Mayor, I have one item. Mr. Maxwell will explain. We'd like to get on your calendar as a group. So, Micah, explain.
Yes, Mike Maxwell, Assistant City Manager. As you all know, next week our consultant, Web Management Services, is going to be in town to speak to the council and a number of stakeholders throughout the community about the market study and the financial feasibility of whatever venue we decide to place into the park. Those interviews are going to occur on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Today they informed me that that they believe that they can be back to us with the information the week of the 25th. And we've looked at our calendars and realized that really the best, the first time we could come to an actual regular work session or council meeting would be the week of the 18th of March, which we would like to not wait that long, considering the information will be completed by the 25th. What we would like to do is schedule a special workshop with the council. I have checked with Patty. It appears that everyone is clear on February 25th at maybe 4 in the afternoon, or you know, if a little earlier, maybe 3 in the afternoon. If that is okay with you, we can get them in and they can provide some comments to you on the market study piece, and then get right into the financial feasibility element, and we don't see any delays.
Okay, so that's Monday, February the 25th.
Correct.
At 3 o'clock?
3 o'clock, yep.
Does that work? Does that work for you all?
Everybody?
It's fine with me.
Okay, we'll just have Patty.
Yeah, I will.
Do we need to pass a motion to that?
No, we've got full.
You've got time, okay.
And this is a workshop, not a meeting? So you won't be voting?
And it'll be here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, sir, I'm done. Thank
Ms.
you.
Aiken, do you have anything further?
No, sir.
Mr. Hamilton?
No, sir, I'm
Mr.
good.
Cundiff?
I'll pass, thank you.
Mr. Poglaze?
Yeah, Mayor, when I told this, I mean, it was great to be part of this group today. That was very difficult. I mean, the only thing that equals that, I remember when the St. Key tried to, were considering seceding from the city. When that gentleman.
It wasn't just Sam Key.
Okay, well, I stand corrected. But when the gentleman asked the most appropriate question, I thought was, when would you want that in your neighborhood? And I honestly, really, I would like that there, because I think it would be an enhancement, improvement to the neighborhood. But just so that those of us who voted yes and those of you who voted no, some of the principals that I met that were really adamant about not wanting this in their neighborhood, as they were departing, they smiled, waved, and said thanks. So I think they really do truly appreciate the difficulty we had coming to this decision. And I would agree with Councilman Hamilton. I think at the end of the day, when this project's built, should we prevail, because I'm not sure they're going to go forward with the lawsuit.
I would anticipate that they would. I think we should assume that they will.
Yeah.
And we will see what the outcome is.
Anyway, it was.
And I'll just, onto what Jay was saying, I just hope they don't, I hope it's a quick, when the lawsuit gets to court, that they make a decision and don't drag it out for everybody's sake, so.
Litigation tends not to be quick.
Yes, I know.
And I agree with y'all. I know each one of us struggled with that decision, and sometimes you just have to do what you think is right. And I don't disagree with the decision. You know, I think that can be justified. I have absolute confidence that we will prevail, you know, if a suit is filed. And I appreciate the work that all of y'all and staff has done. But like I think all of us said, we appreciate the neighborhood and how they conducted itself. I mean, they were model citizens. And we could be proud of that. Just a couple of quick announcements. The Complete Streets Implementation Plan meeting is on February the 12th at the East Community Library. On Valentine's Day, the 14th, is the start of the St. Petersburg Clearwater Elite Invitational softball event. Michelle Smith and ESPN have worked it out where we're getting 16 top collegiate women's softball teams coming from as far away as Oregon here to Clearwater. It is going to be a spectacular tournament, and we welcome those ladies to Clearwater and look forward to cheering them on in a friendly competitions. In addition, the Phillies will be arriving for pitchers and catchers on the 13th. The Philadelphia Union and DC United are already in town doing their spring training for Major League Soccer. The annual Cruising for the Capital car show is going to be on Sunday, February the 17th. February the 18th is President's Day, and our offices will be closed, so our next work session will be on Tuesday the 19th. Want to thank the Clearwater Rotary Club for its recognition of Lieutenants Johnson and Detective Phillips from our police department. and firefighter Dennis O'Connor, Lieutenant Johnson and Detective Phillips from our police department, and firefighter Dennis O'Connor from our fire department with the Cornelius Awards and the program that they had on Wednesday. I know y'all were there, council. I had the mayor's council meeting, so I wasn't able to be there. And I know that my colleagues and city staff joined me in thanking the Chamber of Commerce, the Sheridan Sand Key, PDQ, Backwaters, and all the other restaurants and businesses, Ruth Eckerd Hall, that participated in helping, especially our Coast Guards families during the federal government shutdown. The Sand Key Civic Association took baskets of food over that they collected for the families. The hotels and restaurants provided meals to them, so we appreciate that. And then finally, our colleague Mr. Cundiff is going to be celebrating his birthday tomorrow. So on behalf of all of us, happy birthday.
It's really in March, but I mean, I've lived that long. So.
My birthday present to you is I'm not going to sing.
Again, our next meeting is at 9 o'clock in the morning on February the 19th. Thank you very much for giving us part of your evening tonight. Good night.